The second season of The Count's Youngest Son is a Player kicks off right here. If you missed Season 1, you can catch up using the link in the I button or in the description below. Now, let's dive into today's recap. Sometime later, the scene transitioned to the conference room, where Kane stood before a gathering of key figures, delivering his report. That's all for now, he concluded. We've detected abnormal activity in 3 separate territories. Based on multiple eyewitness accounts, a mysterious night order, comprising dozens of unidentified knights, was seen driving out monsters and securing the main roads. Hearing this, Raoul's expression grew serious as thoughts raced through his mind. After the gate incident, the barony barely held itself together by mustering what little remained of its forces. And now this? Could this be the handiwork of another noble house? A covert scheme to seize control of our weakened territory? Breaking his silence, Raoul asked. Were you able to determine which knight order they belonged to? Kane shook his head. No, we weren't. There were no identifying crests on their armor or weapons. What's more, when our scout attempted to observe them, they disappeared without a trace. Raoul's brow furrowed in thought. That's strange. Knights take immense pride in the houses they serve. For them to conceal their crests, something's not right. Kane continued, his tone laced with concern. There's no way a barony could independently mobilize such a large number of knights. This operation must have a backer, or at least an accomplice. Raoul pressed further. Have any prominent houses or factions made suspicious moves lately? For now, Kane answered. The House of Duke Templeton and the House of Marquis Greer remain quiet. But that's to be expected, they rarely get involved in politics. However, the House of Marquis McNeil was notably swift in quelling the chaos in their region. In fact, there are reports that the Marquis himself took direct action, and some claim it looked as if they were prepared for it in advance. Raoul's gaze darkened. House McNeil. From Ashton's standpoint, Randall may be a nuisance, but from the kingdom's perspective, it's McNeil that poses the greater threat. Once, they betrayed the kingdom. When the Empire invaded, House Templeton led the resistance. But McNeil? They refused to join the alliance, and instead sided with the Empire. Thanks to an internal whistleblower, we managed to avoid catastrophe. But the power vacuum left in the aftermath was inevitable. The question is, when exactly did the Empire turn them? If contact hasn't been re-established yet, we might still have a chance to sway them back. But if they've recommitted to the Empire, then we'll have no choice but to sever ties entirely. Kane resumed. In conclusion, the most suspicious parties are the House of Marquis McNeil, the House of Count Randall, and Viscount Jaden, whom you specifically mentioned, Master. There's something off about him as well, Raoul asked. Right, and what about my uncle? What is he doing now? It appears he recently returned to the capital, Kane replied. Word is, he's conspiring with some relatives from his faction. I believe it's tied to the disturbances in the territory. Raoul's thoughts turned inward once more. Judging by all the intel so far, those knights that have been appearing near our borders must be connected to one of them. It seems like they're planning to make their move here first. Still, can we really expect things to unfold the way we hope? Turning to Philip, who was seated across the table, Raoul gave a firm order. Keep the knights on high alert. Be prepared to activate the portal immediately in case of any emergencies. Philip gave a respectful nod. Understood, Master. Raoul then turned to Jake. From this point forward, the guild's direct forces will assume all responsibilities related to gate management and monster extermination. The Knight Order will no longer handle those duties. Jake nodded, a confident smile on his face. Understood. Raoul looked around at the group. I trust all of you have noticed by now, our enemies are starting to move in earnest. They likely think we're vulnerable, easy prey. Let's remind them of the cost of underestimating us. Let's show them what happens when someone bites off more than they can chew. As the meeting concluded and the others filed out of the room, only Bernard remained. Raoul addressed him with a lower, more personal tone. I'll be staying in the capital for the time being. If you can't reach me and something happens at the family estate, do as I instructed. Bernard bowed deeply. So you want me to take Miss Nakia back to the estate if there's an emergency? Understood. Raoul nodded. Also, if any orders or requests for cooperation come from the estate, ignore them, unless they're from Brother Dylan. His expression turned grave. We still haven't identified the Empire's collaborator, who is likely still lurking within the estate. I need to be ready for anything. I'm sure their target will be my father. His power and influence remain strong. If he falls, the family will descend into chaos. We can't proceed with our plan while leaving a traitor within the main house. This incident may be the opportunity we need to root out every last enemy hiding within our family. Later that day, Raoul arrived at the first guild's Turium branch. He was welcomed by Ilias, the branch's leader, who greeted him warmly. "You're here, master." Raoul gave a nod. "Sir Ilias, have you been well?" Ilias chuckled. "Quite well, thanks to you, master." Raoul observed Ilias thoughtfully. "He began as a trainee knight from the Golden Bear Knight Order, one of 6 who initially followed me. Now, he's risen to expert rank and holds a top executive position within the guild. The Turium branch alone boasts 500 trained guild troops and roughly 20 station knights. Under royal authority, they manage several dungeons around the capital while also taking on commissions from both nobles and citizens." Ilias led Raoul deeper into the branch headquarters, where 3 knights greeted him with identical smiles and spoke in unison. "It's been a long time, master." Raoul recognized them immediately. These knights were my classmates at the academy. They joined the First Knight Order alongside Dalton. All of them were S-class candidates with remarkable talent. Thanks to the guild system, they've grown tremendously. Each of them is on the cusp of reaching mid-expert level. "I heard you've discovered the entrance to an ancient dungeon," Raoul said. "Could you share the details?" A knight with spiky brown hair raised his hand. "Yes, allow me," he said. "The dungeon was discovered by a wandering adventurer. Fortunately, it was near one of the dungeons under our jurisdiction, so we were able to secure it quickly." He continued explaining the situation in detail. Raoul thought to himself, there's no doubt about it. We've finally found an ancient dungeon. In Connect, there are 2 types of dungeons. The first is a gate that was improperly sealed and fused with our world. These continually spawn monsters and require specific conditions to be sealed. The second type, far rarer, are natural dungeons that existed before the gates even appeared. These include hidden sanctuaries, mage laboratories, dragon lairs, places of ancient power. We call them ancient dungeons. Unlike normal dungeons, which are gateways to another dimension, ancient dungeons are part of the Connect world itself, and exponentially harder to locate. Ken added, "We believe this dungeon is none other than Jaynak's dungeon, the one whose entrance disappeared 5 years ago. What's the current status inside?" Raoul asked. Ken replied, "Our knights and soldiers are guarding it closely, and information is under strict control. Jaynak's dungeon has always been shrouded in danger. Despite only partial exploration of its entrance, many valuable relics were found. But almost everyone who ventured deeper never returned. The last known expedition, 5 years ago, ended in tragedy when the entrance collapsed after a noble house's team entered." Raoul's eyes narrowed. "And now, that very dungeon has reappeared, but in a completely different place." Another knight, a red-haired young man, raised his hand and asked, "Master Raoul, do you intend to conquer it?" Raoul nodded. "Yes. Before another rival makes a move, I intend to enter with a small team of elites." Surprised, the red-haired knight asked, "May we know who you plan to bring with you?" Raoul saw their anticipation and smiled inwardly. "They're all eager to join. I understand why." "I'm sorry," he said aloud, "but I've already chosen the members." He turned to Ken. "What do you think? Do you believe you have what it takes to conquer an ancient dungeon?" Ken asked with firm resolve. "Of course. I absolutely want to come with you." Before the assembled knights, Raoul announced his decision. "Among all the knights, I'll be taking only Ken with me on this raid. Is everyone fine with that?" Though a few sighs and murmurs rose in the room, Ken's fellow knights quickly came around. "It's unfortunate, but if it's Ken, we can't complain," one of them said with a supportive smile. "Congratulations, Ken. Do your best, for all of us." As Raoul looked at Ken, he couldn't help but reflect. Among the 10 who joined the First Knight Order, Ken stands just behind Dalton in terms of skill. He's also the only one to have reached expert intermediate rank. Though smaller in stature, his build is lean and quick, optimized for speed and precision. But more than that, it's his mana control, elegant and highly refined, that allows him to push beyond physical limits. He's not just a strong choice, he's the linchpin of this dungeon raid. I'm already looking forward to seeing what he'll achieve in the ancient dungeon. Later that day, the two were alone in a quiet meeting room. Raoul poured Ken a cup of tea and asked, "Is there anything that makes you uncomfortable about life in this Knight Order?" Ken replied without hesitation. "Not at all, Master. With our efficient training system and top-tier facilities, I truly believe there's no better place to grow. Raoul sipped his tea and thought to himself, a textbook answer. Reliable and reserved, typical of a soldier. Though we both graduated from the same National Academy, we never really had the chance to know each other personally until now. He nodded and said, Still, if there's ever something you think we could do better, don't hesitate to speak up. This night order is newly formed, we're still far from perfect. Ken answered. Yes, understood. Raoul leaned forward slightly. Now then, let me get to the real reason I brought you here. Do you have any idea why I chose you for this dungeon raid? Ken looked puzzled. I'm sorry, Master. I don't know. Raoul's expression turned serious. Before we talk about the dungeon, there's something else we need to address first. Don't you agree, Lady Kaylee de Greer? Ken froze. Shock washed over her face. How does he know who I really am? She wondered. Raoul's mind wandered briefly as he looked at her. The House of Marquis Greer, one of the 5 great martial houses of the Reuben Kingdom. Located on the southernmost coast, they are known far and wide for their legendary spear techniques. A family with deep roots in honor and tradition, once famed for producing elite warriors. But everything changed after the Great War. The family lost both its head and heir in battle. With their most guarded techniques partially lost, they could no longer produce sword masters. They withdrew from the political scene and turned inward, hoping to restore their glory from within. In that light, it's easy to understand why a noble daughter from such a house would disguise herself as a man and enroll in the academy. Kaylee lowered her head, voice calm but resolute. My sincerest apologies, your lordship. I never intended to deceive you. I truly had no malicious intent. If you order me to leave the night order, I will do so immediately. Raoul folded his arms. So Ken, or should I say, Lady Greer, you intend to step down as a knight? No, she said firmly, lifting her eyes. Whatever happens, I will continue to be a knight. But that's not something I can decide alone, she thought bitterly. Most knight orders in Reuben Kingdom don't even recognize female knights as members. Raoul raised an eyebrow. Then why speak as if you're prepared to quit? Has something in our order disappointed you? She quickly shook her head. No, absolutely not. But, Master, when you said I could stay, did you mean it? Raoul gave a short laugh. Isn't it obvious? What kind of knight order would let go of someone who reached expert intermediate rank as a teenager? Kaylee hesitated. But I'm a woman. And I belong to the House of Greer, which is a direct rival to your House of Ashton. That doesn't matter to me, Raoul said without blinking. Even if there are problems, I'll take full responsibility for accepting you. Her voice trembled slightly. So, you're saying my gender and lineage don't matter? Raoul met her gaze. What matters is your will. Moved beyond words, Kaylee rose from her seat, then dropped to her knees before him. I, Knight Ken of the House of Marquis Greer, once again pledge my loyalty to you, Viscount Raoul de Ashton, my master. Raoul also rose, stepping forward. Placing a hand gently atop her head, he said solemnly, I, Raoul, master of the First Knight Order, accept your loyalty, and vow to fulfill my duty as your commander. As she knelt before him, Raoul thought to himself, at last. The very talent I sought at the academy. It was never just Kaylee, it was Ken. The first female knight to reach master rank and connect. A prodigy with S-rank potential. Even though fate twisted things and she ended up under Dalton's wing first, I'm glad we're finally here. Looking up, Kaylee asked hesitantly, Then, what should I do now? Should I reveal my true identity and gender to everyone? Raoul shook his head gently. I'll leave that to your judgment. You can stay as you are, or come forward. It's your choice. A soft sigh of relief escaped her lips. Then, I'd like to stay as I am. As Ken. Raoul smiled. All right. Now shall we return to our original topic, the dungeon raid? After completing their preparations, Raoul's party arrived at the entrance of the ancient dungeon. Several knights who had escorted them paused at the threshold. This is where we stop, master, one of them said. We wish you the best of luck. Raoul turned to them, giving a respectful nod. Very well. Thank you all for your guidance. Raid team, this way. Josh bounced on his heels in excitement. I can't believe I was chosen for the dungeon raid team. It's truly an honor, master. Going on missions like this always gets my heart racing. He then pulled something from his bag. Look, I even brought the magic lamp you left in my care. Raoul chuckled. It's good to see you fired up, Josh. But this time, I brought something better than the lamp. With a wave of his hand, Raoul summoned Ravel, the forest fairy. She fluttered into the air, sparkles trailing behind her, and immediately cast a spell. "Leave the lighting to me," she said cheerfully. Suddenly, the dark dungeon corridor lit up with a warm green glow. The faint shimmer of ancient magic danced along the walls. Everyone looked around in awe. The ancient dungeon, with all its mystery and danger, now seemed almost alive with energy. Raoul gestured forward. "That should be enough. Shall we begin our raid on this ancient dungeon?" Some time later, as the party ventured deeper into the ancient dungeon, an unexpected threat appeared. A spectral blue wolf, its body semi-transparent and glowing with ethereal light, emerged from the misty corridor ahead. Ken instinctively thrust his spear forward with precise force, aiming directly at the wolf's core. But instead of wounding it, the spear simply passed through as if slicing through fog. The spirit beast let out a low, haunting growl before retreating silently into the depths of the dungeon. Frustrated but composed, Ken lowered his weapon and thought, "This is tricky." Just like Master said, this dungeon is truly unlike any other. Most of the monsters we've encountered are spirit type, and physical attacks barely affect them. If that's the case, then the only real weakness must be psychic powers. Just as the realization settled in, Raoul, further ahead, extended a hand, his eyes narrowing. A burst of invisible force pulsed outward, striking down another spirit wolf in a single, decisive blow. The creature let out a distorted cry before vanishing into nothingness. After dispatching the threat, Raoul closed his eyes briefly, concentrating as the mana around him shifted subtly. Then, without looking, he spoke. "Josh! Touch the corner of that wall to your left." Josh blinked in confusion but obeyed. As his fingers brushed against the rough stone, the wall rumbled slightly. With the soft grind of ancient mechanisms, a hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow passageway shrouded in glowing mist. Seeing the hidden entrance, Ken's eyes widened. A secret passage. How does Master see through the dungeon's tricks so easily? But Raoul already knew what Ken was wondering. He thought to himself, "Of course I can see through it, because I've been here before. In my past life, Jainax's dungeon was the very first dungeon I ever cleared. Back then, it was considered a high-difficulty labyrinth that many had failed to conquer. But I succeeded because I wasn't an ordinary warrior, I was an esper. This dungeon wasn't designed for just anyone. It was a proving ground built specifically for those with psychokinetic powers. Jainax himself, once revered as the ancient fist master, or the combat master, was an esper. As espers vanished from the continent of Connect, so too did the ability to clear this place. And his closest companion back in the day was none other than the ancestor of House Greer. They pressed deeper into the heart of the dungeon, when suddenly, the narrow path gave way to a vast, open area. Before them stood an enormous stone mansion under a ceiling of enchanted sky, as though they had emerged outside. Josh gasped. "Wait, did we come outside somehow? Is this place still part of the dungeon?" Raoul looked around, eyes scanning the grand structure. "Yes, it's exactly like I remembered. You can never predict what you'll find in an ancient dungeon. This mansion was part of it too." Ken's gaze fell on the stone walls, the carvings, the architecture. Something about the building tugged at his memories. This place, it looks so familiar. "Master, over there!" Josh suddenly pointed toward a large arena-like area where two imposing statues stood facing each other. "There's something here!" Ken followed his gaze and stopped. His breath caught. A bronze statue stood tall, its design unmistakable. The scene faded to several days earlier, in the meeting room of the Turian branch. Raoul leaned back in his chair. "Now then, let's return to the topic of the dungeon raid. Ken, you've heard the rumors, haven't you? About the hidden treasure left behind by the ancestor of Marquis Greer in Jainax's dungeon?" Ken nodded gravely. "Yes. In fact, most of the artifacts unearthed in past expeditions were related to House Greer. The Marquis attempted multiple raids over the years whenever the dungeon reappeared. But the cost was devastating. Few ever made it back." His tone turned somber. "The most recent attempt was 5 years ago. My older brother Sean Greer, the heir of our house, led that expedition. When news reached the Academy of the Dungeon's discovery, he mobilized his escort knights and soldiers and rushed there. But he never came back." Ken clenched his fists. "Master, no matter what, I must go. I have to reach that place, for my brother's sake, and for my family." Now back in the present, Ken stood frozen, staring at the bronze statue. Raoul looked over. "What do you think? Could the rumors have been true?" Ken stepped forward, voice firm. Yes. I'm certain of it. That's him. That's Jeremiah de Greer, the founder of the Greer Marquette. The three of them approached the statues together. But just as they stepped closer, a glowing system window appeared in front of Raoul. Warning, this is a forced quest area. Unauthorized entry may result in death. Recommended qualifications, spear technique rank B or higher. Proficiency level, 1 or above. Bloodline holder from House of Marquis Greer. Seeing the message, Raoul turned to Ken and gave a confident nod. Looks like it's finally your turn. Can I trust you to handle it? Ken nodded, determination burning in his eyes. Please, master. Leave it to me. He stepped forward slowly, approaching the statue of Jeremiah de Greer. As he entered the activation range, the statue's eyes gleamed with light. It began to move. With a metallic echo, the statue's arm swung its spear wide, and a deep voice boomed through the chamber. Who dares disturb my eternal sleep? Ken immediately assumed a combat stance, spear raised in front of him. I am Ken, of the Greer Marquette. I request the teachings of the family's founder. The statue let out a low chuckle. So you carry our name. I won't go easy on you. Show me if you're worthy. In a blink, the statue lunged. Spear strikes rained down with impossible speed, testing Ken's defense. Blocking furiously, Ken's mind focused on every movement. There's no mistake, this is the legendary Greer technique, Fury Wave. I have to watch carefully. I can't afford to miss even a single move. As the clash echoed through the arena, Raoul turned his attention to the second statue nearby, that of Janak himself. He smiled faintly. Then I'll leave this to Ken and take care of my part. As Raoul stepped closer to the towering statue of Janak, a familiar system window flashed before his eyes. Warning, you are entering a forced quest zone. Unauthorized entry may result in death. Recommended requirements: combat skill, rank B or higher, intermediate level +1, psychic skill, rank B or higher, intermediate level +1. Suddenly, the eyes of the Janak statue glowed with life. The stone began to crack and shift as the ancient figure awakened with a powerful voice that echoed across the chamber. Who dares disturb my long slumber? His gaze fell on Raoul and the tiny forest fairy, Ravel, hovering at his side. Janak let out a deep chuckle. A fairy and a fledgling psychic? How amusing. Very well. If you can endure my trial, I shall reward you accordingly. Do you accept the challenge? Raoul raised his head confidently. I will. In my previous life, he thought, I barely survived this fight with just intermediate level 3 telekinesis. But this time, I'm far stronger. This won't be a problem. With a wave of his hand, Raoul's psychic energy surged. Swords made of pure telekinetic force manifested in the air around him. Dozens, then hundreds, all floating and ready to strike. Janak's eyes narrowed in surprise. Unbelievable. That's clearly intermediate level psychokinesis, but the output and control. Out loud, he scoffed. You do realize having many doesn't mean you have everything, right? Raoul smiled faintly. Of course. I'm looking forward to this duel. Without another word, Janak lunged. His fist, wrapped in a greenish martial aura, tore through the air with immense pressure. In response, Raoul launched his psychic swords forward. But Janak twisted and dashed through the formation, slipping between the blades with uncanny speed. He swung his fist directly at Raoul. Ravel reacted instantly, forming a shimmering mana barrier around Raoul. The fist struck, yet the barrier offered no resistance. The blow pierced straight through and landed cleanly against Raoul's torso, sending him staggering back. Pain flared through Raoul's body. That hit landed directly, even though the barrier was intact. Could this be penetration fist? One of the advanced martial techniques? If so, I'm at a disadvantage. Just then, a familiar voice echoed from within the Regnitor armor. Karl's spirit materialized beside him. You've run into a rather dangerous opponent, Karl said calmly. How does it feel to face him head-on? Raoul grimaced. He's annoyingly tricky. His attacks cut straight through defense. Blocking won't work, I'd have to dodge everything. But if I do that, this wouldn't be a real duel anymore. Karl nodded. That's what makes martial artists like him terrifying. When facing someone who's mastered penetration fist, your options are limited, either deflect or stay completely out of range. Janak surged forward again, delivering another fierce strike. Raoul twisted aside, narrowly dodging. Before he could recover, another blow followed. Raoul bent backward, just barely avoiding the second attack as the wind from the strike passed over his face. Janak smirked. Warm-up's over. Now I'll show you my true power. Raoul's thoughts turned serious. So in my past life, he was holding back after all. Janak possesses two psychic abilities, flame manipulation and body reinforcement. That enhances both his attack power and defense. Combined with his master-level martial arts, he's one of the strongest one-on-one duelists I've ever encountered. But still, as Janak launched another deadly blow, Raoul vanished using flicker, reappearing in the air above him. With a gesture, a new ring of swords formed around Raoul, glowing with psychic energy. In aerial combat, I have the advantage as a telekinetic. The blades flew downward like meteors, targeting Janak. But Janak answered with overwhelming force. Flames exploded around his body as his aura flared. The stone beneath him cracked and scorched, and the pressure in the room spiked. On the ground, both Josh and Ken felt the change. Their expressions grew tense. Meanwhile, Janak shouted, "Didn't I tell you already, boy? Sheer numbers won't overwhelm me." He raised his fist again. "Junk like this, I'll cut down." With explosive strength, he swung his arm and shattered many of the incoming blades. But something unexpected happened. One of Raoul's swords sliced into Janak's forearm, drawing blood. Janak's eyes widened. "What? That's a mana blade." He glanced around. "No, all of these swords are imbued with mana? For a rookie like him to maintain this many enchanted weapons." Letting out a roar of frustration, Janak released a psychic pulse that caused the blades to clash against each other in midair, colliding and shattering into fragments. Raoul frowned. My mana blades were overwhelmed. I need to reinforce them again with psychic energy. Before he could act, Janak raised both hands, gathering flaming energy into a monstrous shape. An enormous dragon formed entirely of flame and aura, its jaws wide open. The beast lunged toward Raoul like a comet. Damn it! Raoul thought, panic rising. There's no way to dodge this. No matter where I run, I'm toast. Just then, Carl reappeared beside him, calm and composed. Relax, Raoul. Open your eyes and observe. That's not a real dragon, it's condensed flame aura. The form is just an illusion. What you need to find is the mana core. That's its weak spot. Raoul's eyes sharpened, focusing. He scanned the flaming dragon, and then saw it, a swirling orb of concentrated mana at the center of its mouth. There it is. Channeling his power, Raoul conjured a new set of telekinetic blades, sharper, stronger, more refined than before, and hurled them directly into the core of the incoming dragon. A massive explosion erupted midair. Flames surged, smoke filled the air, but as the dust settled, Raoul emerged from the smoke, unharmed. Janak stared at him in disbelief. His mouth opened slightly, and he muttered, I have to admit it. You've surpassed a level I can judge. He slowly lowered his fist, and bowed his head slightly. This duel is your victory. The statue of Janak spoke, its deep voice echoing through the hall. Thanks to having met such an outstanding junior, I can leave in peace. A sudden chime sounded in Raoul's ears, and a system window appeared before him. Forced quest, Janak's test, completed, rewards, mansion warehouse key, type B, 50,000 player coins, large amount of EXP, title obtained. The one who received Janak's acknowledgements. Before Raoul could fully process the notification, a brilliant golden light began to radiate from the statue's chest. Slowly, a shimmering golden core emerged, floating in the air. I look forward to the day your psychokinesis reaches the level of a master. The statue continued. May the experience you've gained from today's battle guide you along your path. Raoul's brows furrowed. What's this? Wasn't the reward for the hidden quest already fixed? The moment the golden core drifted away, Janak's statue fell silent and still, returning to lifeless stone. Across the hall, the statue of Jeremiah stopped mid-swing against Ken. Time's up. I concede, this match is over. Ken, panting heavily and drenched in sweat, could barely keep his stance. Jeremiah's statue inclined its head in respect. You've endured far longer than I anticipated. I respect your perseverance. Ken of Marquis Greer, you pass. From the sidelines, Josh let out an enthusiastic cheer for both Raoul and Ken. Yet another system notification popped up before Raoul's eyes. Forced quest, Janak's test, completed, rewards, mansion warehouse key, type B, 50,000 player coins, large amount of EXP. Raoul smirked to himself. Good, just as planned. That means Ken has cleared his trial too. Once they stepped inside the mansion of Greer, Josh couldn't help but marvel. It's on par with the mansions in the capital. Raoul waved a hand dismissively. You've both worked hard. Take a short break. I'll contact you through guild communications when I need you. Until then, rest in your rooms. Yes, master. Thank you for your hard work, Josh and Ken replied before heading off. As their footsteps faded, Raoul placed his hand on a table and opened his system interface. All right, time to sort through the rewards. A window displayed the details. Title: The one who received Janak's acknowledgements. Grade S. Effect: increases combat power, psychic skill strength, and skill proficiency by 20%. Raoul tilted his head thoughtfully. Not bad, though a swordsmanship buff would have been nice. Well, I can always get that somewhere else. From his inventory, he pulled out the golden core. Item: Janak's spiritual core, grade S. Effect: enhances certain psychic abilities of the consumer. A special core left behind by Janak for future generations. Grants unique powers based on the consumer's choice. Raoul froze for a moment, stunned. An S-grade core? In my previous life, the first dungeon clearer only got grade B, and everyone after that received grade C. Without hesitation, he swallowed the core whole. Golden light flared across his body. You have consumed the S-grade spiritual core, Janak's spiritual core. The core's effects are spreading throughout your body. Choose 2 growth effects suited to your aptitude. 3 new system windows materialize before him. Psychokinesis, power growth, increases the total movable weight by 10 times. Psychokinesis, control growth, increases the number of manipulable objects by 10 times and improves fine control. Psychokinesis, range growth, doubles both detection and spirit projection range. Raoul's eyes widened. I have to choose between these? That's insane. Taking a deep breath, he analyzed each. Power boosts the weight I can move and the speed of heavy objects. Control lets me handle more objects simultaneously and with precision. Range expands my area of influence and detection. After a moment of consideration, he made his decision. You have selected range growth and control growth. Golden light surged through his body, his eyes now glowing with radiant gold. Every object in the room rose into the air under his will, spinning and floating in perfect harmony. So this is how it feels. This sensation is completely different from when I reached Meister level in my past life. Honestly, I could crush the past life me in a psychic duel right now, and not just maybe, but definitely. With a thought, everything returned neatly to its place. Just then, he sensed a faint but unusual aura. Come to think of it, just as I got a hidden reward, Ken must have gotten one from Jeremiah. That ring and spear, looks like he awakened his abilities. Good for him. A smile touched his lips, until Josh burst into the room, face pale and breathless. Master! There's a big problem. Raoul turned sharply. What happened? Josh swallowed hard. I was walking around the back of the mansion during break, and I found something. A place that looks like a graveyard. A little later, Raoul, Ken, and Josh hurried toward the rear grounds of the mansion. The air was heavy, and an unsettling silence blanketed the area. As they rounded the last corner, the sight before them made them all tense. Hundreds of human skeletons lay scattered across the ground, bleached and brittle with age. Raoul's gaze swept over the grim remains. He turned to Ken, his voice low and grim. It's even more horrific than I expected. There's something in particular you're looking for, isn't there? Ken nodded solemnly. Yes, master. Without another word, Raoul stepped forward, extending his right hand toward the field of bones. His thoughts focused inward. Let's use the spiritual core's effect. An invisible wave pulsed outward, scanning the skeletal remains one by one. His senses sifted through the dead until something caught his attention. There, nestled on the finger of a golden-armored knight's skeleton, was a distinctive ring. Raoul recognized it instantly. The crest belonged to the house of Marquis Greer. Raoul stepped toward the armored corpse. The faint glint of gold contrasted with the weathered bones. Behind him, Ken's eyes widened as he fell to his knees, despair written across his face. Moments later, Josh approached, holding a bundle of weathered papers. Master, we found this right beside the corpse. Raoul took the documents and began to read. The ink was faded, but the writing was still legible. September 7th, I heard from Fabian about Janak's dungeon. We've never gotten along, not since I took the top spot in the entrance exam. It's suspicious he'd offer me this kind of information. September 10th, Fabian of House McNeil says he wants to make amends. He proposed we tackle the dungeon ourselves, No adults, no interference. September 12th, after some thought, I agreed. Waiting for my family's support would take too long. I've decided to reclaim our family's secret art on my own. September 15th, we entered the dungeon with my escort knights and private soldiers. Progress was smooth. Fabian was cooperative. September 19th, something is wrong. The dungeon teems with spiritual entities. Physical attacks are useless. September 21st, I've been betrayed. Fabian and his party vanished during the night. Even the hired guide and priest are gone. It must have been prearranged. We later found the guide and priest's bodies. Fabian must have done it. The entrance has disappeared. Only one knight remains with me. I must make it back to Kaylee. Damn this cursed dungeon. Raoul lowered the paper. The rest is illegible. It seems his mind had already begun to break. Ken rose slowly, trembling with rage. His eyes burned a deep, furious red. Raoul's thoughts sharpened. Fabian of House McNeil. I've heard of him. The late-born son of Marquis Clifford de McNeil, the axe master himself, born when the Marquis was already past 40. Not gifted, yet spoiled beyond reason. The Marquis even created a knight order for him. Wait, why does this sound so much like my own story? Turning to Ken, Raoul spoke with measured sympathy. I'm sorry for the tragedy here. As for Fabian of House McNeil. Ken cut him off, his voice steady despite his fury. I have already pledged my loyalty to you, Master. I will not tarnish your name over personal vengeance. But if conflict with House McNeil ever comes, please allow me to stand at the front. Raoul paused for a moment, then nodded. I swear it. You will have your chance to take rightful revenge, but you must do it with your own strength. Ken bowed his head. Thank you, Master. I will never bring dishonor to your name. Raoul's eyes narrowed slightly. Eliminating Fabian won't be difficult, but there's no need to rush. Sooner or later, House McNeil and I will clash. They're not the only ones who can scheme. When the time comes, I'll repay them in full. In the weeks that followed, the dungeon expedition concluded. Jane X's dungeon was relocated entirely to Calypso's territory, possible only because Raoul had received an extraordinary reward, Jane S. Dungeon Core, Grade EX. Effect, grants administrative control over the ancient dungeon. Jane X's dungeon. Function, create or seal entrances at any location. Warning, destruction of the core will annihilate the dungeon entirely. The existence of ancient dungeon cores was among the most closely guarded secrets in the world. Even Raoul, once the operator of an intelligence cafe, had never heard of them. Using the core, Raoul salvaged every remaining treasure from the dungeon and reconfigured it into a personal training ground, complete with the guidance of 2 ancient masters. Even Bernard, the Wind Mage, used it to elevate his psychic abilities to a higher level. Now, Raoul's focus shifted to strengthening the knights and readying his forces for the inevitable conflicts ahead. 1 month later, Mira First Guild Academy, Dalton greeted him warmly. Long time no see, Raoul. It's been a while. Raoul replied with a faint smile. How are the trainees? You mean the foreigners? Their growth rate is astounding. Now I see why you're so interested in them. Dalton, both headmaster of the academy and the swordsmanship instructor, oversaw their training personally. And the guild recruitment? Raoul asked. I've been focusing on the talented ones, but fewer people are interested than I expected. That's fine, Raoul said. Just make sure you secure the ones I named. Of course, Dalton replied. I won't take my future subordinates lightly. Raoul thought back to a special item he had obtained long ago, a rare consumable from a main scenario quest that allowed the creation of a second guild, bypassing the rule that each person could only join one. With it, he would form the Purple Guild, a secret player-only organization rivaling the First Guild in power. I'm counting on you, Raoul told Dalton. I'll give you most of the Purple Guild's authority. Dalton smirked. Leave it to me. Those old lords won't even imagine we're building something like this in secret. With that, Dalton departed. Alone now, Raoul's form shimmered, shifting into the appearance of Bei Dohayan. Then, time to update today's record. Sometime later, a student from the First Guild Academy burst into one of the classrooms, his face flushed with excitement. Hey! Big news! Bei Dohayan just showed up at training arena number 1, he shouted. The room stirred instantly. Really? One student exclaimed. How high is he planning to push his score this time? Another jumped from his seat. Let's go! If we're lucky, we might even get a party play with him. It had already been 2 months since the Academy's first batch of students enrolled. 600 of them were being rigorously trained under the Academy's specialized methods, and their skills were improving at an extraordinary pace. Among the many programs offered, one stood out as the Academy's pride: virtual battles via the Illusion Magic Circle. This system could create complex, lifelike battle environments filled with monsters, designed to evaluate a student's ability in real combat scenarios. Every week, the students' performances in these simulations were compiled into a ranking list. The final graduation exams would also use the same system, making it a vital part of their training. But since the program's launch, one thing had remained constant: the number 1 spot had never changed. The undisputed top ranker was Bae Do-hyun, a name synonymous with dominance. His position in the Academy wasn't just first place, it was untouchable. Training Arena number 1 was alive with the sound of combat. Inside, Bae Do-hyun was cutting through monsters with effortless precision, each strike clean and decisive. Outside, students huddled around the ranking display. "Whoa," one student said, wide-eyed. "That monster just broke another record. I thought we were finally catching up this time." Another muttered in frustration. A third asked, "He barely even shows up to classes. How does he keep getting scores like that? Even the instructors have acknowledged him." A fourth replied, "Rumor says he's busy running missions for the first guild." Moments later, Bae Do-hyun stepped out of the training room. At once, rank students like Blake hurried over. "You're sparring today, right?" Blake asked eagerly. "How about with me?" Before Bae Do-hyun could answer, another student cut in. "Don't be ridiculous." Someone behind Blake scoffed. "I booked him last week." That person was promptly shoved aside by Wang Tianming, who declared, "Move aside, everyone. Today, I'm going to avenge my last defeat." Bae Do-hyun let out a tired sigh. "Don't you guys ever get tired of this?" he asked. Wang Tianming smirked. "Not until I beat you. We can't graduate with a loss hanging over our heads. I'll keep challenging you until I win." Blake grabbed Tianming's shoulder from behind. "At least wait your turn," he said sharply. "You can't just charge in every time because you're impatient." The two immediately started bickering over who deserved the first sparring match. Watching them, Bae Do-hyun thought to himself, "Still, I have to respect their persistence. At least now that most of the troublemakers are gone, we can talk like normal people." Finally, he cut in. "Fine. How about a 2-on-1 today?" The arguing stopped instantly. Blake and Tianming turned toward him in surprise. Not long after, both were lying on the arena floor, utterly defeated. "Damn it!" Tianming groaned, pushing himself to his feet. "We couldn't even land a single hit together. What a monster!" Blake staggered up beside him. "No matter how you look at it, Do-hyun's an irregular. I can't believe he's even the same kind of player as us." Tianming clenched his teeth. "You're just not skilled enough. One day, I will take him down." Blake glanced sideways. "What about you?" Tianming frowned. "What about what?" "The Purple Guild," Blake said. "It's been trending among rankers lately. Even the instructors are promoting it hard." "Not interested," Tianming replied flatly. "I don't plan on joining any organization. I already turned down every guild offer back in my home country." "I'm thinking of joining," Blake admitted. "The conditions sound really good." Tianming raised an eyebrow. "What kind of conditions?" "I want the best treatment in the best guild," Blake said matter-of-factly. "Even if I started my own, I doubt I could surpass the one Bae Do-hyun's in. Think about it, once the academy ends, it won't be easy to meet him again. If you want to beat him someday, wouldn't it be smarter to join the same guild and bide your time?" Tianming fell silent, imagining the day he could finally defeat Bae Do-hyun. "You still have that guild information brochure?" he asked. "Didn't you get one already?" Blake replied. "I threw it away the day I lost to him. I was pissed," Tianming admitted. "Then get another from the instructor." "Seriously, you need to control that temper," Blake said. Flustered, Tianming shot back. "Mind your own business." The scene shifted to the first guild's mirror branch, where a golden brown-haired guild member approached Raoul with news. "The business targeting outsiders is finally turning a profit," the man reported. Raoul smiled faintly. "Is that so? That's good to hear. We expect a steady flow of newcomers in the future," the man continued. "So we're planning to expand our shops in case we get more visitors than expected. The guild has secured both the manpower and the funding," Raoul assured him. "If you need anything, we'll gladly cooperate." We're truly grateful for your personal assistance, Baron Raoul, the man said sincerely. Suddenly, a system window appeared before Raoul, an incoming guild audio message. He opened it. The voice of Bernard came through urgently. Master, we have a problem. We just received word from our informant in Cauford Castle. Count Melvin has collapsed. Raoul's expression hardened. Damn it. Is the scenario starting exactly as I predicted? He immediately activated emergency transmission to all guild members. All forces, maintain maximum alert, he ordered. From this moment, consider this a wartime situation and prepare accordingly. Yes, master, came the unified reply. Raoul strode quickly down the corridor, flanked by knights, continuing his orders through the link. All knights of the Mirror Branch, head to Calip's castle. Also, there will be officer meetings tonight. Stand by until then. That's all. He cut the transmission and pushed open the door to a room, where Nikia, Dalton, and Kane stood near an active portal. What's the current situation? Raoul asked. Kane reported. The Count hasn't regained consciousness yet, but healers and priests have begun treatment. Then follow me to the main estate, Kane, Raoul ordered. Dalton, join Bernard at Calip's castle with Nikia. Yes, master, they replied. Raoul then turned to Nikia and used a secret transmission directly to her mind, issuing a confidential order. Finally, he addressed Kane. First, we hurry to the main estate. Inside, his thoughts burned with determination. When I opened my eyes as Raoul Ashton, I made a vow to accept this life and face whatever comes. The tragedy looming over the Count's family, I will stop it, no matter what. The scene shifted to Cauford Castle, ancestral seat of House Ashton. Raoul strode through the main gates, his voice echoing with urgency. I came as soon as I heard Ivan. The butler, Ivan, was visibly trembling as he bowed low. Lord Raoul. I failed to properly serve the Count. I have no excuse. Raoul shook his head. Don't blame yourself too much, Ivan. What matters now is father. Let's see him first. He signaled to Philip, one of the household retainers. Philip stepped forward at once. This way, my lord, he said, taking the lead toward the Count's chambers. As they approached, Raoul noted the armored knights standing guard before the door. He recognized immediately the family crest emblazoned across their breastplates. Without a word, he entered. Inside, Count Ashton lay unconscious upon his bed. The room smelled faintly of incense. A healer and a priest stood nearby, tending to him. Beside the bed, Lady Estella, wife of Raoul's elder brother Dylan, was weeping uncontrollably. Her reddened eyes turned to Raoul as he entered. Young master, what do we do about this? She asked through her tears. Raoul did not answer right away. He took a seat beside his father, staring at the still form with tightly clenched fists. Then, jaw-taut, he addressed the healer and priest. What exactly happened? Why is father in this condition? The priest hesitated, then replied. We do not know the precise cause yet, but judging from the symptoms, it appears to be mana backlash. Raoul's eyes widened. Mana backlash, he thought grimly. In his mind, he recalled the basics. Every knight who uses mana possesses a network within the body known as a mana road, a fixed pathway through which mana flows, much like blood in veins. When, for any reason, that mana reverses its flow, the phenomenon is called mana backlash. In most cases, it is fatal. For those who survive, permanent disability is almost certain. The priest continued. Though this case is slightly unusual, mana backlash is the only condition that explains his symptoms. Raoul pressed further. Is there a treatment? We have to stabilize him somehow. The priest's expression turned regretful. In this case, divine power is ineffective. We can only offer blessings in his presence. Raoul gave a curt nod. Then please, do everything you can. Later, when the others had stepped back, Raoul remained seated beside the bed. From the armor he wore, a faint shimmer emerged. The spirit Karl, sealed within it, materialized. Karl's voice was low and grim. The Count's will is formidable. He must be enduring immense pain. Raoul turned sharply to him. Master, is there no way to save him? Karl considered, then said. Let me borrow his senses for a moment. Raoul placed his right hand over his father's head. Karl studied for a moment before speaking again. This is strange. It does not match any case of mana backlash I've encountered before. Raoul leaned in. So there is a chance to treat it? Karl's tone grew cautious. It's complicated. His condition is highly unusual. By this mana level, he should already be an intermediate master, yet he hasn't broken through. The Count's own mana is clashing against the reversing mana, pushing back as if in a stalemate. But he can't hold on forever. There are two possible approaches. First, identify the root cause of the backlash. There is an unnatural mana flow mixed in. If we block it, his natural flow should recover. Second, forcefully block the reverse mana flow. But this method requires a master-level manipulator to control the mana with extreme precision. It's incredibly risky, and even then, stabilization is not guaranteed. If either method succeeds, the worst-case outcome is unavoidable. Sometime later, Raoul walked through the castle corridor with Ivan, deep in thought. "Why hasn't my eldest brother arrived yet?" Raoul asked. Ivan replied. "A few days ago, 2 teams went missing in a strange dungeon. The eldest young lord went personally to investigate." Raoul frowned. No wonder he didn't respond to the guild's messages. "Has he sent word about returning?" Raoul pressed. "Of all places," Ivan answered. "The dungeon is located at the farthest edge of the Count's territory." Raoul's expression sharpened. "What about the Knight Commander? And Commander Ernest Bozel, the Viscount?" "The Knight Commander went into the dungeon with young Master Dylan. Viscount Bozel has been away for over a week conducting mobile training." Raoul stopped in his tracks. "Then who's overseeing the house and the castle's defenses right now?" "The main estate is under Baron Carlo de Ashton, commander of the Silver Bear Knights. The castle is guarded by Baron Dwayne de Ashton, head of the security forces." Raoul muttered to himself, so that explains why it's the Silver Bears on escort duty. He knew the county maintained 4 knight orders. Golden Bear Knights, elite warriors serving directly under the head of House Ashton. Silver Bear Knights, primarily composed of Ashton family members. Iron Bear Knights, skilled fighters of common or foreign birth. Chain Knights, a not yet formalized order still in training. While prestigious by name, the Silver Bears were generally considered weaker in combat than the Iron Bears. Raoul made his decision. "Send a messenger. Summon the Golden Bear Knights immediately. Fill any gaps in their ranks with members from the Chain Knights. And tell Baron Dwayne to lock down Comfort Castle. No one gets in or out until further notice." "Understood, young lord," Ivan replied. As they moved, Raoul's mind was racing. The timing is too perfect. Everyone else thinks Father's collapse is an accident, but I don't. My brother and most of our forces are conveniently away, leaving the estate vulnerable. Without my informant in the main house, I'd have arrived too late, and if Father had died, the county would have plunged into chaos. We narrowly avoided disaster. I need to act now. Opening a private guild channel, Raoul issued rapid orders. "Jake, I'll open a private portal. Bring the knights and our guild members to Comfort Castle. Dalton, join us at the mansion with Nakia and Ken." They answered with unwavering obedience. "Yes, master." Raoul's mind was already in motion. The enemy, he knew, still had no idea of the true power he and the First Guild possessed. This ignorance would be his advantage. He would use it to position his forces and quietly root out any signs of treachery. Just then, Kane's voice crackled through an audio message from the castle wall. "Master, we have a situation. 6 barren families bordering 4 of our lands are moving troops toward the borders. It's a significant force, including knight orders." A slow, knowing smile formed on Raoul's face. Inwardly, his resolve hardened. So, they want to go there, he thought. "I'll show those rotten traitors exactly what happens to backstabbers." The scene shifted to a secluded mansion, where a man with silver-white hair greeted Viscount Jaden. "It wasn't easy finding a suitable place," the man admitted apologetically. "I'm sorry to receive you in such a shabby place, Viscount Jaden de Ashton." Jaden brushed the apology aside. "Forget that. What's the situation?" The man leaned closer, lowering his voice. "According to our spy, the Count is on the verge of death. Most of the castle's main forces are away for a dungeon subjugation." A cold smile curved across Jaden's face. "Serves him right. He should have known his place, bringing death upon himself with his foolish actions. Dylan took the bait too. Nothing else we need to worry about, right? There's no one else who could rally them," the man assured him. "But I've just received word. Somehow, Raoul Ashton has shown up at the mansion." At that, Jaden's expression darkened. "That brat Raoul? After what happened in the capital, he's been far too active." The silver-haired man quickly reassured him. "Don't worry. We've stationed troops in his territory. He'll be rushing back in no time." "He'd better," Jaden replied sharply. "We paid a lot to move those worthless pawns." Keep a close eye on him and report to me immediately, he replied. Yes, sir. Jaden then turned toward his assembled knights. His voice carried with authority as he declared, Men, you've waited long enough. Our great cause has finally begun. This is the crucial task of setting the Ashton line straight. Let us drive out the vile ones who disrupted the family's order, and we will rewrite Ashton's history with our own hands. The knights roared behind him, raising their hands in unison. Those of the Count's line. Jaden thought darkly. I'll tear them down from top to bottom. Meanwhile, at Comfort Castle, Raoul was making preparations. Then I'll be counting on you, he said. Leave it to me, my lord, replied Weyron, a senior knight of the Golden Bear Knights, the man Raoul considered the best choice for the task at hand. Raoul reflected inwardly that Weyron's loyalty and strength made him the ideal guardian. A day after his father's collapse, knights from nearby had returned to the mansion, and after careful observation, Raoul had entrusted his father's protection to Weyron and his order. It was then that Baron Carlo, commander of the Silver Bear Knights, stepped forward. Isn't this a bit of an overreaction? He questioned. Are you saying that adding extra guards means you don't trust the Silver Bear Knights? Raoul met his gaze firmly. It's not that I don't trust you, Baron, it's that I don't intend to trust anyone. I'll keep strengthening the guard until my brother returns. I hope you understand. In his mind, Raoul calculated further. 5 Golden Bear Knights will rotate guard duty on the 5th floor, where Father's room is. No one may enter without my permission. This plot began within this very manner. Right now, I cannot trust anyone. I must strengthen the guard even more. Later, Raoul visited his father, Count Melvin Ashton, who was bedridden under the care of Bishop Alonso of the Xenon Order. Is there any improvement? Raoul asked. I'm sorry, Alonso admitted. Just maintaining the Count's current condition is already overwhelming for me. Raoul looked at his father's fragile state for a long moment, then said gently, You've done well, Bishop. Could you step aside for a moment? Understood. The bishop bowed and left the room. Immediately, Nakia entered. Raoul asked her quietly, How does it look? After carefully observing the Count, Nakia nodded. I think your guess is correct, Master. This is definitely a case of maniphilaria. Raoul's heart sank. Maniphilaria. I've seen this before. In my previous life, it was revealed that key figures of the kingdom were assassinated this way. The exact cause was never uncovered, but it sparked a great bloodbath. I always suspected it was connected to the downfall of the Count's line. Is treatment possible? He asked. Based on the data you gave me, I've already developed a cure, Nakia replied. Treating the maniphilaria itself won't be a problem. However, I can't guarantee what the Count's condition will be after treatment. Still, I'll do my best. I'm counting on you, Raoul said. If it's you, Nakia, I believe you can do it. Nakia bowed and left, while Raoul thought grimly, Now then, shall we go catch the tail of the ones who caused this mess? Sometime later, Raoul met with Philip. You're saying forces have been spotted at the Calip's estate's border? Raoul asked. Yes, Philip confirmed. It's said to be composed of a private knight order and mercenaries. No official report yet, but judging from the scale, there's a real possibility of a territorial war. They'd need royal approval to declare one, wouldn't they? Raoul pressed. Still, Philip warned. The enemy has already completed deployment. They could declare war at any moment. Then time is of the essence, Raoul said decisively. Let's return to the territory. Inform the commanders of each domain about the movements in neighboring lands. Have all knight orders prepare for combat, he replied. Yes, master. Unbeknownst to them, a figure cloaked in black observed from the shadows nearby, smiling maniacally at what he overheard. Later that night, 2 Silver Bear Knights guarded the mansion in uneasy silence. One of them frowned. Hey, didn't you just hear something? He whispered. Before his companion could respond, a dagger pierced his neck. Blood spurted as his body collapsed. The second knight turned in horror, only to be struck down as well, another dagger burying itself in his throat. The killer stepped from the shadows, Imperial Hound 6. He sneered. Just as we heard, the security is lax. At that moment, one of his subordinates hurried out from the mansion. As promised, all the windows are open. Good, Imperial Hound 6 replied with cold satisfaction. Move to the designated spots and await my signal. Once you see it, kill them all, and burn everything, he replied. Yes, Captain. As his men scattered into position, Imperial Hound Six's lips twisted into a maniacal grin. I've been holding my breath for decades, waiting for this day. Count Ashton's line. I will snuff out your last breath with my own hands. The windows of the mansion stood wide open, yet the two silver bear knights stationed nearby remained oblivious to the danger creeping in from the shadows. A sudden red flare streaked into the sky, bursting with ominous light. One of the knights turned toward it in confusion. At that very instant, a dagger shot from the open window pierced his head, dropping him dead on the spot. The knight beside him gasped in shock, but before he could cry out, a figure cloaked in black appeared silently behind him. The Imperial Hound pressed a hand over his mouth and drove a dagger deep into his throat. Another life was snuffed out in an instant. The assassins moved quickly. Two of them slipped into the room beyond, where Dylan's wife, Lady Estella, lay sleeping on her bed. The sound of footsteps stirred her from her slumber. She opened her eyes, but before she could react, a handkerchief soaked with a drowsy, chemical scent was pressed against her mouth. She struggled desperately, but within moments her body went limp, and she fell into an enchanted sleep. The Imperial Hounds carried her to their leader, Imperial Hound 6. His cold eyes scanned her before he asked sharply, "Are you sure this is the target?" "No doubt about it," one of the kidnappers confirmed. A low, satisfied laugh escaped him. "Everything's going smoothly. Starting tonight, the Count's house will walk the path of ruin." At his order, one subordinate slung Lady Estella over his shoulder and leapt from the window, carrying her away into the night. Imperial Hound 6 lingered, gazing out at the chaos unfolding below. Things are going so well, perhaps I should watch a little longer. It should be about time for the signal. His anticipation was rewarded. Flames erupted across the mansion as another flare burst in the sky. The Silver Bear Knights, finally realizing the danger, shouted, "Enemy! We're under attack!" But the defenders were outmatched. The Imperial Hounds carved through them with merciless precision, moving faster and striking harder than the knights could hope to withstand. Fire spread rapidly through the halls, smoke twisting into the night sky. Imperial Hound 6 smiled faintly and turned down the corridor. "Good. That's enough chaos. Let's head to the next target's location." He reached another chamber and pushed open the door, only to be met by the sharp metallic tang of blood. His nose wrinkled. "I told you to keep it under control," he barked at his subordinates. "How many times did I say the target mustn't be harmed?" Before his fury could settle, a blade sliced through the air toward him. Instinct saved him. He leapt back, dodging the strike. What he saw froze him. 3 of his men lay lifeless on the ground, and standing above them was Philip, his sword gleaming in the firelight. "Was there such an order?" Philip asked coldly, lowering his blade into a ready stance. "Guess I didn't hear it." Imperial Hound Six's eyes narrowed. "Damn it. That man. I thought he went back with Raoul. Something's wrong. We'll retreat for now." He spun on his heel and fled through the smoke-filled corridors. Glancing back, he saw Philip had not pursued. Relief flickered through him. Luckily, he's not chasing us. So, protecting the target really is his priority. Looks like Raoul secretly kept troops hidden. Foolish bastard. Even so, tonight will still be our victory. Later, within a meeting room, tension boiled over. Whereon, a Golden Bear Knight slammed his fist onto the table. "Just how was the guard set for such a disaster to happen?" he roared. Baron Carlo, commander of the Silver Bear Knights, snapped back immediately. "What? Are you saying this is only the Silver Bear Knights' fault? The inner and outer security were your responsibility?" Whereon shot back. "This matter will be thoroughly investigated later, and responsibility will be taken. Try it if you can," Carlo snarled. "If you insult my knights who gave their lives in battle, I won't stand by quietly." Before the argument could boil over, Philip's sharp voice cut across the room. "That's enough. Both of you, stop this." Silence fell. Philip turned to a Silver Bear Knight nearby. "Report the damage." The knight bowed his head. "Yes, sir. In last night's attack, 30 guards were killed, and 5 Silver Bear Knights lost their lives. 1 annex burned down, half the East Garden was destroyed, and the main building suffered considerable damage. And amidst the chaos, Lady Estella was kidnapped." Whereon and Baron Carlo froze in shock. "What a disaster!" Whereon muttered bitterly. "I have no face to see the Count, or young Lord Dillon." Philip's tone remained calm, though his eyes hardened. "What about their trail? Any word from the pursuit team?" For some reason, the knight admitted. After they left the inner castle, their tracks have been hard to follow. Philip nodded grimly. Then let's do what we can first. Right after the incident, I ordered the guard captain to seal the gates. They shouldn't have escaped the castle yet. Sir Wayron, please continue to guard the count with the utmost care. Understood, Wayron replied. Philip turned to Baron Carlo. I'll ask you again to secure the mansion. There might still be remnants inside. The attackers even smashed the outer portal last night. Clearly, it was to keep the count's main forces from returning. There may very well be another attack. Everyone stay alert. The meeting ended, and the knights dispersed. As Philip stepped aside, he opened a private channel through the guild chat. I carried out your orders, master. Raoul's voice answered from the shadows beyond. Good work, Sir Philip. Soon, the real prey will take the bait. Now, it's time to deal with the rats. The scene shifted to a military tent lit by lanterns, where Viscount Jaden pored over reports and maps. Suddenly, Baron Tate burst through the flap, breathless with urgency. News has arrived, he said. Dylan Ashton and the Golden Bear Knights have just returned from the dungeon, Commander Jaden. Jaden's sharp gaze rose from the table. Where are the enemies? Baron Tate quickly spread a map across the desk, pointing to its markings. The Commander-in-Chief and the Central Army of the Count's territory have already begun retreating from the Forbidden Zone's border. With the portal destroyed, they'll need at least 5 days to return, even at best speed. Meanwhile, we are east of Comfort Castle, in Baron Bennett's territory. With cavalry, we can reach it in 2 days. Jaden studied the map, then asked evenly. What is the current troop situation in Comfort Castle? Given its size, it is not an easy target, Tate replied. 5,000 guard troops maintain order and security. 60 elite knights and about 100 chain knights have been confirmed. In practice, Jaden mused, we have only about 1,500 elite troops. Taking the castle quickly won't be easy. But even if the unexpected happens, the hostages we hold will serve their purpose. Baron Tate gave a thin smile. You mean the captives secured right under the Count's nose? Our collaborators must be very skilled to have pulled it off. It wasn't that hard, Jaden said coldly. A man unfit for the seat of Count sits there. You're right, Tate agreed. The current Count is far too soft. This is the time when your decisiveness and drive are needed, Commander. Jaden rose from his chair and strode out of the tent. His knights stood assembled outside, awaiting his command. One of them lifted a horn and blew a sharp, resonant call across the camp. Raising his hand high, Jaden declared, All troops, march immediately on Comfort Castle. The story then shifted to the riverside, where Dylan and the Golden Bear Knights had halted to rest. Their horses drank deeply from the lake, while the men loosened their armor and sat in silence. Trevor de Hesse, commander of the Golden Bear Knights, approached Dylan, who stood brooding at the water's edge. Do you feel a little better now? He asked. Dylan exhaled heavily, shaking his head. I'm still frustrated. I should have judged more carefully. It's not your fault, young lord, Trevor said gently. It's been a long time since I, too, was deceived so thoroughly. Dylan's jaw tightened. The reports of a peculiar dungeon, missing soldiers and knights, with procedures in place, there was no choice but for me and the first knight order to act. Traces of demons had been reported. How could I ignore it? Yet the dungeon had been empty. No beasts. No demons. Nothing but a clever trap. His teeth ground together. First during the Royal Capital Rebellion, and now again, fooled twice by lies. Trevor's voice broke his thoughts. So, where do you plan to go now? After leaving the dungeon, I heard everything from Raoul, Dylan replied. He gave me 2 options. The main road splits ahead. One path leads straight to Comfort Castle to rally scattered troops. The other, Dylan's eyes narrowed, is somewhere we must visit before returning to the castle. We'll take that road. Trevor nodded without hesitation. Understood. Commander, Dylan called again, his tone quieter. What do you think of Raoul? The third young lord? Trevor considered. Before the Count went into seclusion, he once spoke to me about Raoul. He blamed himself for not realizing Raoul's true nature. He thought Raoul was a child to be protected for life. But Raoul was too exceptional for the Count's household to contain. Dylan turned sharply. Father said that? Trevor sighed. If Raoul had been only moderately gifted, your father would have warned caution. But Raoul is not someone who covets the Count's seat. Dangerous though it may sound, He has the talent to raise a nation. As the Count said, Raoul is far too great for one house alone. A faint smile crossed Dylan's face. That Raoul, when did you even win over the commander? He straightened, resolve burning in his eyes. Let's move. Those who dared betray the Count's house must pay the price. He mounted his horse and called to his knights. Move out again. Leave behind anyone who falls behind. Stay sharp and keep up. The Golden Bear Knights rallied, ready to follow. Far away, in the depths of an Imperial Hound hideout, Imperial Hound 6 returned with his subordinates after their mission. His teeth clenched as he surveyed the surviving troops. The last operation caused more damage than expected. Raoul left behind variables deadlier than we imagined. But it doesn't matter. No matter who survives, the result will not change. The Ashtons will tear each other apart, until only one remains. And that will be the perfect moment to cut off the Count's family's last breath. From the shadows above, he watched over the Empire's mana soldiers, his expression twisted with grim satisfaction. Imperial Hound 6 stood in the shadows of the underground chamber, his expression calm yet calculating. Should we have deployed the cavalry earlier? He wondered. No, they must not reveal themselves yet. Whether Baron Jaden seizes Comfort Castle or not, it no longer matters. Once the battle begins, our agent will neutralize the castle's magical defenses. Then, we'll open the portal beneath this chamber and unleash reinforcements and cavalry inside the castle walls. The cavalry must be saved until the end, for the bloody festival to come. Truly, I can hardly wait to see that scene. His musings were broken by the hurried footsteps of a subordinate rushing in, shouting breathlessly. Captain? Big trouble! The captive we took from the Count's family has escaped. Imperial Hound 6's eyes widened in shock. What were the guards doing? Those fools couldn't even keep watch over one woman? She can't escape the underground. Search inside, quickly! Yes, sir! The subordinate barked, rushing off. But before the search could begin, a voice echoed from behind. Sorry for calling me just some woman. Imperial Hound 6 spun around in alarm. Lady Estella stood there, cold fire in her eyes. In an instant, she struck, killing the subordinate beside him. An escaped prisoner! The captain barked. What are you doing? Catch her already! 2 of his men lunged toward her, blades flashing. But to their shock, she moved with deadly precision, cutting them down before they could react. Their lifeless bodies fell to the ground. Imperial Hound 6 froze, his heart pounding. That movement, what the? She wasn't an ordinary woman? Before his eyes, her form began to waver, shifting like rippling water. Her features melted away, and a mocking voice filled the chamber. That damned bronze mask! I never thought the day would come when I'd remove it with my own hands. The disguise collapsed, and the truth was revealed. It was not Lady Estella at all, but Cain. His eyes burned with vengeance. The revenge for my men who died so miserably, he growled. Today, I will repay it in full. Imperial Hound 6's composure cracked. That one, no doubt, the master of the Wings of Freedom, the Information Guild. Damn it, he disguised himself as a target just for this moment. How did he get this far? Cain sneered. This is just the kind of filthy trick you bastards pull. What's wrong? Upset you got burned by the same games you play. Arrogant brat! Imperial Hound 6 roared. This is the Imperial Hound's den. Don't think you'll leave here alive! At his command, several subordinates rushed forward, weapons drawn. Cain leapt into the air, his daggers flashing. Swallow waltz! The steel blades spun through the air like deadly comets, striking enemies in their heads and shoulders. Some dropped instantly dead. Others screamed in agony as they staggered, grievously wounded. Damn you! Imperial Hound 6 lunged, slashing with his dagger. Cain met the strike head-on, his own blade locking against it. You bastard! The captain snarled. To charge into enemy territory so recklessly, there's a limit to stupidity. You may have gotten this far by luck, but since you've seen everything, you cannot be left alive! Their blades clashed, sparks bursting into the dark chamber. More Imperial Hounds swarmed in, their numbers growing. Cain only smiled coldly. So you've all crawled out? Before the clash could continue, the ground shook violently. An explosion erupted at the entrance, smoke and fire blasting into the chamber. From the haze, a voice thundered. Wipe out every last one of them. Leave no survivors! Raoul Ashton emerged with his knights, their weapons gleaming. They surged forward, cutting down Imperial Hounds and Empire Mana soldiers alike. Imperial Hound Six's eyes widened in disbelief. What? How are you here? Raoul's gaze fell upon him, calm and commanding. From the looks of it, you must be the one in charge of this tunnel. Why are you here? The captain shouted. Didn't you return to your territory? Raoul glanced around the chamber, almost fascinated. Truly interesting. Does the Empire have a mole unit? How do you always manage to dig these underground tunnels? Imperial Hound 6 ground his teeth. Hundreds of cavalry, over 100 enhanced soldiers and Imperial Knights, all being completely overwhelmed. When did he gather such a force? This is nothing like the scale I saw at the investiture. Raoul's eyes followed the battlefield, pride flickering in his thoughts. For the past 6 months, I've been recruiting talent using the developer's analysis. With the system's aid, we conquered gates and trained without rest. One by one, they rose to expert-class knights. Now, all that effort is finally bearing fruit. But as the slaughter continued, Imperial Hound Six's expression twisted in desperation. My plan, 10 years in the making, is falling apart like this? No. I cannot give up here! He roared, summoning his full strength. A torrent of red aura burst from his body, flooding the chamber with murderous heat. For the glory of His Majesty the Emperor! Raoul's eyes narrowed in recognition, a hint of surprise flickering across his face. That technique, the Black Sacrifice. As the tension in the battlefield reached its peak, Cain assumed his fighting stance, daggers at the ready, preparing to face Imperial Hound 6. Raoul watched silently, contemplating the situation. What do you think, Cain? He wondered. The opponent was no ordinary foe, an expert-level fighter with activated tattoos, now in a berserk state, making them even more dangerous. Yet there seemed to be a flicker of emotion left within them. Would Cain take on such a challenge? Cain's form glowed with a greenish aura, the energy enveloping his daggers as he spoke with quiet resolve. I'm honored that you'd entrust this to me. For the sake of our fallen comrades, I'll make sure to take you down with my own hands. Without hesitation, Imperial Hound 6, fueled by his berserk state, lunged forward, striking with devastating force. Cain met the assault, his daggers clashing with the attack, sending waves of energy and dust scattering across the battlefield. At that moment, Jake approached Raoul and reported, Master, we've taken care of all the Imperial Knights and Demon Cavalry below. Raoul turned, relief flickering in his eyes. That ended faster than expected. Good work, everyone. Observing the duel between Cain and Imperial Hound 6, Jake commented, The berserk monster seems to have the advantage. Will it be okay? Raoul's gaze remained fixed on the fight. He's defending much better than expected. At this rate, the match will be decided soon, he thought. Jake, with a teasing grin, called out to Cain. Lady Cain, if this White Knight's help is needed, just say the word. Cain, flustered and angered by the remark, turned sharply. Not necessary, he growled, his eyes blazing. In a flash, he struck with lightning speed, slashing Imperial Hound 6 across the body. The berserker screamed in pain as blood spilled, falling to his knees, yet his dark aura still lingered. Turning to Jake, Cain asserted confidently, I'm more than enough on my own. Raoul nodded approvingly. It was an excellent match. Your skills have really improved. Cain replied humbly. I showed a shameful performance. Raoul's attention shifted to the fallen enemy. Now don't think this is the end, he said, activating his skill aura of radiance. Golden daggers surged forward, piercing Imperial Hound Six's body. Slowly, the dark, blood-infused aura began to fade. Cain observed silently, recognizing that the attack had severed the demonic energy that had possessed the hound. Raoul then commanded his knights to remove the corrupted power armor and take the fallen soldier away, still breathing. With the armor now on the ground, Raoul extended his hand, his regnator armor absorbing the fallen hound's power. Seeing his strength increase, he muttered, As I thought, this confirms it. Turning to the forest fairy, Ravel, who was examining the armor, he asked her opinion. Yes, Ravel replied, her eyes scanning the system window. To evolve Regnator to the next stage, we need to absorb power armor contaminated with demonic energy. I had a feeling it would be like this. Any other changes? Raoul asked. I think we'll know once the digestion is complete, Ravel answered. What's certain is that this alone is far from enough. Of course, don't worry. We'll have many more opportunities to acquire them in the future, Raoul reassured her. Turning to Jake and Cain, he said, Alright, let's quickly wrap this up and head back. We still have a lot to take care of. Yes, Master, they replied in unison. Raoul handed Cain the mask of Imperial Hound 6. It might be troublesome, but Cain, I'll have to ask you one more time. Leave it to me. This is my specialty, Cain said, donning the mask and perfectly shape-shifting into the form of Imperial Hound 6. Well then, Raoul thought, now it's time to weed out the vermin hiding in the castle. Meanwhile, within the castle, nobles and high-ranking members were summoned. The crowd murmured among themselves. Gathering us like this? I wonder if something bad has happened to the family head. One whispered. Another cautioned. Don't even speak of such ominous things. They might have uncovered those who attacked the inner castle. At that moment, whereon the Golden Bear Knight arrived. May I have your attention, please? He called out. The reason I've gathered you all here today is to ask for your opinions on a certain matter. It concerns a magical message that arrived yesterday evening. The nobles gasped in shock. It was from Viscount Jaden. The messenger explained that Jaden had left the family, wandering foreign lands, but never forgot his duty. He had trained knights and soldiers, hoping to assist when needed. Upon hearing of the family's crisis due to the unprecedented gate incident, and the critical illness of the family head, he had mobilized his forces to come to the county's aid. Baron Jared de Ashton, elder council member of House Ashton, shouted indignantly. What in the world is this? What a long load of nonsense he's written! How dare that traitor set foot on this land again? A young man with golden hair, Baron Isaac, replied calmly. There's no need to dwell on past events like that. Jared bellowed. Dwell on it? This is about a traitor, Baron Isaac. Isaac countered. It's true that Viscount Jaden's actions have harmed the main family, but must we turn away someone coming to help in this situation? Whereon spoke up, his voice steady. Actually, this matter should be decided by the Count, or the Count's representative. But the situation is urgent. According to our scouts, Viscount Jaden and his group of supporting lords will arrive at Conford Castle tomorrow. Jared and the other nobles were taken aback. What? Such an insolent fellow, bringing troops into the county without permission? Baron Isaac inquired. Has there been any armed conflict or looting? Whereon replied. No reports of that nature have come in. Isaac pressed further. Then what's the problem? He isn't forcing his way in. Isn't this a sign he doesn't intend hostility? A fellow noble suggested. Wouldn't it be better to accept him for now and discuss it later when the Count's representative returns? Turning away someone offering help is unbecoming of a noble house. Jared, flustered, shouted. Such an ungrateful. After all the kindness the Count's family has shown, how dare you say such absurd things? Isaac shook his head. It's that outdated thinking eating away at the family, letting emotions cloud judgment. Another noble stepped forward. That's right. It's time we put an end to these bad habits. Jared, seeing Isaac's point gaining agreement, thought grimly, to side with such unreasonable opinions. I fear something terrible is about to happen in the county. The Ashton family was no ordinary noble house. Bearing the title of Border Count, the Ashtons stood as the western shield of the kingdom, entrusted with defending the lands against the ominous Forbidden Zone. Because of this responsibility, the royal family had granted them extraordinary privileges. Several territories paid taxes directly to the Count instead of the crown, and the Count in return forwarded only a portion to the kingdom. He raised and commanded his own military forces, and any land reclaimed near the Forbidden Zone automatically became part of his domain. He even possessed the authority to appoint lords. Thanks to these powers, the Ashton household ruled over so many vassal families that people often called it a small kingdom, its territory vast, comparable to the size of the Korean peninsula. Naturally, within such a realm, nobles frequently clashed over rights and interests, and factions formed according to their political stance. Before leaving the estate, Raoul had warned Philip, keep an eye on some of the relatives who raise their voices while I'm gone. They'll do anything for a slice of power. Baron Isaac, on the other hand, argued, since we're family, shouldn't we discuss things with them directly? Philip stepped forward, bowing slightly. Forgive the interruption. I've just received contact from the acting count, and I will convey his orders. The hall fell instantly silent. Philip gestured toward the wall. Everyone, please direct your attention to the screen. A large screen lit up behind him, revealing acting Count Dylan. People of Conford Castle. Dylan began, his voice steady despite the tension hanging in the air. I apologize for the delay. This is Dylan, acting Count. I thank you all for fulfilling your duties during this time of turmoil. I will now announce several decisions made during the meeting. The crowd leaned forward. First, Dylan continued, from this moment onward, all gates of Comfort Castle will be closed, and entry or exit is strictly prohibited. Second, I appoint Chief Knight Wayron as temporary commander of the castle. All forces within the castle are to obey his orders until the commander-in-chief or my unit arrives. Violations will be punished under wartime law. The screen faded. Philip lowered his head. That is all. The briefing is over. You may be dismissed. Baron Isaac's expression darkened. He turned sharply and left without a single word. Philip watched him go with a grim expression. If only they backed down quietly, but no. If they could, none of this would have started. At night, Baron Isaac's mansion, meeting room. Baron Isaac sat at the head of a long table. So, did you find out the current troop placements? Divany, commander of the Guard Corps and a chain knight, nodded. Of course. The Count's central army is stationed entirely inside the inner castle. The Guard forces occupy the two outer walls, and the Silver Bear Knights are holding the outer gate. Baron Dwine, captain of the Guard, stroked his beard. Concentrating the direct forces in the inner castle, that works in our favor. Isaac turned to Divany. Who ordered the Silver Bear Knights to be stationed outside? Divany answered. It seems temporary Commander Wayron made the request to their knight commander. Isaac shifted his gaze to another man. And? Will that be a problem? Baron Lamar, vice commander of the Chain Knights, replied confidently. If you're referring to the Silver Bear Knights, no. We've already brought several to our side. Handling the separated ones won't be difficult. Isaac leaned back, thinking. The Chain Knights, a probationary knight order awaiting positions in the regular orders, also commanded the Guard Corps at Comfort Castle and other key forts. In other words, aside from the elite knight orders, every other force was already under their influence. Good, Isaac said. We'll leave the Silver Bear Knights to Baron Lamar and the Chain Knights. A noble raised a concern. Are you sure it's safe to ignore the inner castle? Without securing the manor, won't all of this be meaningless? We're not here to start a civil war. Isaac explained calmly. Once Baron Jaden enters the castle, legitimacy will follow naturally. He's bringing several hundred knights. Even if they force their way in, taking the manor will be easy. After that, we'll seize the families of the county's key figures as hostages. A silver-haired noble nodded. Then the Central Army and elite knight orders won't be able to act. Exactly, Isaac said. Once the tide shifts, the surrounding vassals will have no reason to side with Dylan. Prepare yourselves. Soon, the true master of the county, Baron Jaden, will arrive. One by one, the nobles left the meeting room. And as the door closed behind the last of them, a faint smile curled onto the face of Baron Lamar, who was, in truth, Cain, perfectly disguised by his shape-shifting skill. The next morning at the Comfort Castle, a Silver Bear Knight burst into the operations room, shouting, Disaster! Wayron, the temporary commander, rose immediately. What happened? The knight saluted shakily. A coup, sir. Overnight. A blood-soaked Silver Bear Knight arrived at the inner gate moments ago. He said the rebels, and traitorous Silver Bears, have seized all the outer gates. Baron Carlo, commander of the Silver Bear Knights, slammed his fist on the table. What disgrace is this? Tarnishing the name of Silver Bear so shamelessly? Philip asked urgently. Where is Captain Dwine? It appears he's joined them. The Silver Bear Knight said bitterly. The moment news spread, he went out saying he would assess the situation. He never returned. Wayron clutched his head. Baron Jaden is expected to arrive around noon. Baron Carlo grabbed the hilt of his sword. Damn it! I'll cut down every last traitor. If we can break through even one gate before they gather more forces, we can end this siege. Stop, Wayron commanded. Our top priority is protecting the Count's household. A reckless attack will doom us all. If we're ambushed like last time, everything will collapse. Carlo grit his teeth in frustration. Philip stepped in. The commander is right. If fighting breaks out inside the castle, soldiers and civilians alike will suffer. Carlo growled. Then what do you suggest? Are we just going to sit and watch Jaden's forces march in? A calm voice answered from the doorway. No, Raoul said as he entered. Of course we can't. You've all endured enough. The knights turned in shock. Baron Raoul? How are you here? Raoul smiled faintly. I've come to tell you that I have a way to resolve this situation. Some time later, at the outer walls of Comfort Castle, A cluster of silver bear knights stood wrapped in robes, some loyal, some already swayed by Baron Isaac and Baron Dwayne. Baron Isaac and Baron Dwayne arrived at the wall. One of the silver bear knights called out, "Captain of the guard, you've arrived. What's the situation?" Dwayne asked. The guard extended a small scope. "You'll have to see for yourself." Dwayne took a look, only to freeze. There were no soldiers preparing for them outside the inner castle. The eerie stillness made his stomach twist. Seeing his reaction, Baron Isaac narrowed his eyes. "Is there a problem?" "By now," Dwayne muttered. "There should have been some reaction. Why is it so quiet?" Isaac sighed. "They must have realized the situation already. Don't you find it odd? Temporary Commander Wayron is probably hesitating. He clearly lacks confidence in his own judgment." "I hope that's all," Dwayne said quietly. But thoughts raced through his mind. Strange. Even if incompetent, shouldn't he at least send an envoy to gauge our intent? Do they plan to provoke direct conflict? They couldn't be that foolish. We have hundreds of knights here. They can't stand against us. Even politically, Baron Jaden outweighs Dylan. Count Melvin, if you were alive, none of these decisions would have been made. Before he could think further, a massive magic circle flared to life above the outer wall. The guard staggered back. "Something's coming out!" he shouted. A projection formed, Raoul's image appearing above the battlements. Raoul cleared his throat. "Everyone, can you hear me clearly?" Dwayne's face twisted in shock. Earlier, inside the operations room, Raoul had stood before Wayron, calm and steady. "There is a way to resolve this situation." "But my lord," Wayron protested, "the situation is too unfavorable. If battle breaks out inside the castle, there will be no battle," Raoul said firmly. "The reality isn't as dire as it seems. Most soldiers on the outer walls are simply following their commander's orders." Wayron blinked. "What?" "The ones who seized the gates," Raoul explained, "were only some chained knights and nobles. Meaning most guards don't even understand they've been dragged into a rebellion. All we must do is awaken their sense of duty." In present at Raoul's broadcast, Raoul's voice boomed throughout the outer castle walls. "The Ashton County hopes you will not shed meaningless blood. Your duty is to protect your families and neighbors, not to swing swords at comrades. Do not be swayed by the instigation of a few shameless traitors." Baron Isaac slammed his fist against the wall. "Damn it! Stop that broadcast!" But already, soldiers were stepping back from their positions, refusing to obey. Isaac's face twisted. "He's branding us as shameless traitors. We'll lose control at this rate." Raoul continued. "I, Raoul de Ashton, give you my word, no soldier forced into rebellion against their will shall be held accountable." Isaac shouted frantically to the troops. "Don't be fooled! They're lying! The real rebels are those who seized the inner castle." But the soldiers didn't respond. Many quietly formed ranks facing inward, no longer loyal to Isaac's faction. Dwayne felt his confidence slipping. "This isn't turning in our favor, but we still hold the gates. Time is on our side. Once Baron Jaden arrives, everything changes. Raoul can't hope to retake this place." He clenched his jaw. He doesn't have the strength. At the inner gate, several nobles arrived with their troops. A knight asked, "State your affiliation." A brown-haired noble stepped forward. "Tyrannian de Ashton. I heard the broadcast. I've come to lend what strength I can to subdue the traitors." A red-haired noble named Zenito Talon stated, "I request to join the suppression force." A knight with flowing golden hair smirked. "I heard there are fools bold enough to rebel. I came to see for myself." Moments later, a guard rushed into the operations room. "Sir Wayron! Over 2,000 reinforcements have arrived at the inner castle. The adjutant has finished arranging them. Everyone wishes to punish the traitors at the outer walls." Wayron exhaled slowly. Everything is unfolding exactly as Lord Raoul predicted. Meanwhile, at the outer wall, several rebel knights whispered nervously. "Did you see the forces inside the inner castle? Are we seriously about to start a civil war?" "I'm out. I was only following orders." They dropped their weapons and fled. Their commander barked after them. "Guards! Get back here! That's direct disobedience." Inside the inner walls, knights raised their swords high. "Strike down the traitors who dared rebel against the Count's house!" The battle cry echoed across the city. On the outer wall, Baron Isaac and Baron Dwayne watched the overwhelming force forming before them. Isaac swallowed hard. "Lord Dwayne, What should we do? We can't possibly stop a suppression force of that size. But Baron Jaden will be here soon. Dwayne remained silent for a long moment. His eyes drifted to the trembling soldiers behind him, morale shattered at the sight of united forces in the inner castle. Finally, he said, "Tell the archers to ready fire arrows. Gather the nimblest men, prepare oil and fire." Isaac's eyes widened in horror. "Lord Dwayne, think rationally. There are homes beneath us. Setting fire here would, I am being rational," Dwayne snapped. "Now that we've been branded as traitors, why hold back? If we burn the gates and the city streets, we can at least buy time. Either way, if we lose, we die. Push this far, all we can do is fight to the bitter end." Baron Isaac hesitated, torn between fear and reason. "But if we burn the castle," he argued, "we'll lose the support of the neutral nobles." Baron Dwayne, already pushed to desperation, dismissed the concern with a harsh scoff. "We're about to die. Do you really think that matters now? In this chaos, do you think the people will know who set the fire? We can make excuses for that later. What matters now is reuniting with Baron Jaden." Isaac fell silent, realizing the grim truth behind Dwayne's words. At last, he turned away and muttered, "I'll order the soldiers to do as you say." "Good," Dwayne replied coldly. As Baron Isaac pivoted to leave, Baron Lamar arrived, though the man was actually Cain in disguise. Isaac brightened immediately. "Baron Lamar, perfect timing, we need your help. Order some of the chain knights to take oil and set the streets on fire. This time we'll break the gates and, amidst the confusion." But he never finished. Cain drew his sword in one smooth motion and slashed downward, cutting into Isaac's arm. The Baron collapsed to the ground with a cry as blood splattered across the stones. Baron Dwayne froze, bewildered. "What is this?" Cain glared at them both, his voice dripping with disgust. "I can't stomach this any longer. Just listening to you makes my ears rot." Isaac, clutching his wounded arm, gasped. "What is this?" Cain didn't bother answering. He raised his voice and commanded, "Knights, seize all the rebels here!" His men, who had infiltrated the rebel force earlier, immediately turned and clashed against the traitorous knights. Baron Dwayne, reacting on instinct, unsheathed his sword and charged. Cain parried the powerful strike with ease, blades screeching as sparks flew between them. "Betrayal?" Dwayne spat. Cain smirked. "Don't make me laugh. Who's calling who a traitor?" Dwayne's eyes narrowed. Something about Cain's movements felt wrong, too fluid, too mocking. Then realization struck him. "You're not Lamar. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize a direct subordinate I've known for years?" With a fierce swing, Dwayne forced Cain back a few steps. But Cain only chuckled. "Who knows? But for someone claiming that, you realized it far too late." Before Dwayne could reply, he sensed a presence behind him. He spun, raising his sword just in time to block a brutally heavy attack. The sheer force sent tremors through his arms. "Who swings a sword with such monstrous strength?" he thought. He turned fully and found Jake standing there, eyes sharp and cold. "You can still stand?" Jake asked. "It's been a while, senior. Or should I call you a traitor now?" A bead of sweat rolled down Dwayne's face. Jake stepped closer. "Ever since you left the Golden Bear Knights, it seems your head's gone mad. Doing things you didn't dare even 10 years ago." Dwayne stared at Jake, horrified. When did he become this strong? 2 years ago, I could overwhelm him easily. Cain's form shimmered as he returned to his original self. He approached Jake and asked, "You two knew each other?" "Something like that," Jake muttered. "But not on good terms." Meanwhile, the remaining rebel knights were subdued and restrained. Baron Dwayne let out a bitter laugh. "If you've shown up, that means Raoul is here too. To be toyed with by a brat. I really have grown old." Cain bristled with anger. "Watch your tongue when speaking of the master." But Jake stepped past him, his expression turning cold and murderous. In a split second, he rushed forward and slammed his fist into Dwayne's face with devastating force. Dwayne spat blood and collapsed, unconscious. Jake then opened the guild communication channel. "The rebels who seized the outer walls have been suppressed, master," he reported. Raoul's calm voice answered, "Good work, everyone. Lock them all in the castle's underground prison. And place guards at the estates of every implicated family." "Yes, master," Jake replied before closing the channel. Moments later, Wayron entered and reported, "We have arrested all nobles and Knight Order members involved in this rebellion." "Well done," Raoul said. The evidence is solid, they won't be able to deny anything. Inwardly, he thought, with this, the trash inside the main house should finally be cleared. Now, only one unwanted guest remains. He asked, "Where is Viscount Jaden? He should arrive within an hour." Whereon replied. Raoul stood, resolving himself. Then it's time to make preparations. Baron Carlo, commander of the Silver Bear Knights, stepped forward. "My lord, I will follow the Baron as well." Raoul studied him briefly. Baron Carlo, casualties among his knights, traitors among his ranks, and yet he's trying to take responsibility. Philip approached and quietly asked, "What do you intend to do?" "For now," Raoul said, "we should at least try to talk. After all, he is, at least in name, my elder uncle." "And if they launch a reckless attack?" Philip asked. Raoul's eyes hardened. "Then we'll sweep them away without mercy." Far from the castle, Viscount Jaden and his knights marched along the road, steadily approaching Comfort Castle, unaware of the storm waiting for them. Some time later, when Viscount Jaden and his knights were still a few kilometers away from the castle walls, he paused and scanned the distance, searching for a signal. Turning to Baron Tate, he asked whether there was still no contact. Baron Tate replied that the last message had come 2 hours ago. He urged calm, suggesting they think positively. The fighting, he reasoned, must be so intense that no one had found the time to send a magic orb. Viscount Jaden's son then spoke up, agreeing with Baron Tate. Even the weakest forces, he said, could not possibly hold the outer walls for 2 or 3 hours. Even if the situation was unfavorable, the defenders would have suffered heavy losses fighting among themselves. Viscount Jaden nodded in agreement, saying that was likely the case. With that, the group continued their march toward the castle. However, when they finally arrived, shock spread across their faces. They exchanged nervous glances as they took in the scene before them. Standing at the front gate was Weyron, flanked by the Golden Bear Knights. Weyron stepped forward and announced himself as the temporary commander of Comfort Castle. From that point onward, he declared, no one would be allowed to enter without permission, and he ordered them to leave. For a brief moment, silence fell. Then Viscount Jaden spoke, his tone sharp but controlled. He acknowledged Weyron's resolve in protecting the castle, but criticized his lack of discernment. He claimed he had come only to protect his sick sibling and the castle itself, and questioned by what right someone outside the Count's household dared to block his path. He insisted that the acting Count had ordered that no one be allowed entry except authorized personnel, and demanded Weyron stop making a fuss and stand aside. Those words ignited Viscount Jaden's anger. He raised his voice and shouted, asking who Weyron thought he was to decide whether he could stay or leave. He ordered the gate to be opened at once. In response, Weyron's knights immediately shifted into their fighting stances. At that moment, Raoul arrived and calmly stated that Viscount Jaden would not be allowed to enter the Count's castle. The sight of Raoul made Viscount Jaden visibly tense, shock and unease flashing across his face. Raoul introduced himself, explaining that this was their first meeting. He was Raoul de Ashton, the Count's third son and the current temporary lord of Comfort Castle. Viscount Jaden ground his teeth in frustration, thinking bitterly that the crafty bastard had supposedly returned to his own territory. Aloud, he accused Raoul of failing to learn from his father how to treat his elders. Raoul smiled faintly, but his expression quickly turned serious. He replied that if Viscount Jaden truly wanted respect as an elder, he should not have betrayed the family. His name, Raoul reminded him, had already been struck from the family register, yet he still acted without shame. Hearing this, Viscount Jaden's eyes reddened as he clenched his teeth. Raoul then signaled to Weyron for the letter. Weyron immediately handed it over, and Raoul began reading it aloud, calling out the names, Viscount Jaden, Baron Esteban, Baron Kian, Baron Amos, and Baron June. At the sound of their names, the barons stiffened, fear creeping into their faces as they began to tremble. Raoul continued, declaring that those named had committed rebellion by bringing in outside forces and moving troops without authorization. In the name of acting Count Dylan de Ashton, he ordered them to disband immediately. One of the barons cried out nervously, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. He claimed he had only been escorting the Count's elder brother, and that calling it rebellion was absurd. Raoul replied coldly that if they were innocent, they should come to the Count's castle and prove it. If they had no intention of escalating the situation, they were to leave at once. The Baron fell silent, glancing uneasily toward Viscount Jaden. After a brief pause, Viscount Jaden suddenly burst into laughter. He remarked that this was a real blow to him, and since either side was willing to yield, the matter clearly would not end there. He proposed settling the issue with a 5-on-5 nightly duel, suggesting it was a fair solution. Raoul, inwardly tense, recognized the proposal for what it was, a nightly tournament, a method used to judge disputes the law could not resolve. It was a middle ground between personal duels and full-scale territorial war, a way to settle matters through honor and acceptance of the outcome. Outraged, Weyran shouted, demanding how someone without honor could even speak of a nightly duel. Viscount Jaden responded that he believed it was a proposal that would not put them at a disadvantage. If that method was unacceptable, he said, then there was no choice but to fight it out right there. Raoul could only think of it as a nuisance. At that moment, Jake, standing beside Raoul, sent a message through the guild channel, suggesting it would be better to simply fight and wipe them out. He volunteered to take the vanguard. Raoul admitted to himself that he wanted to do exactly that, but knew the decision was not so simple. Kane responded to Jake, advising against a direct clash. The losses on their side would be severe. Jake questioned that assessment, pointing out that the knights Raoul had prepared were twice the enemy's number. Kane explained the real problem. They were missing the most crucial force. All of Viscount Jaden's knights were equipped with power armor. That realization made Jake uneasy. Raoul, meanwhile, acknowledged the truth of it. Power armor was the real issue. Although they had gathered some themselves, their numbers were far too small for the manpower involved. Even if a battle began, the castle walls would suffer massive damage against armored knights. To fight here would mean accepting enormous losses. A proper battle, he knew, was one fought on chosen ground, at a chosen time. Letting out a slow sigh, Raoul finally asked Viscount Jaden what he wanted. Viscount Jaden answered that if his side won, a few lords, including himself, would be allowed to return to the inner castle to meet the Count. If they lost, they would quietly withdraw their troops. In his heart, Viscount Jaden reflected that having come this far, they had to at least fulfill their stated purpose of paying respects. Only then could they seize future opportunities. Though they treated him as an outsider now, everything would change if Melvin died. What he needed was a clear justification to aim for the next countship. Raoul remained silent for a moment before giving his answer. Very well, he said, they would accept the nightly duel. Hearing this, Weyran and the other knights looked on in confusion at Raoul's decision. Meanwhile, Viscount Jaden's lips curled into a sinister smile as he thought to himself that this was exactly what he wanted. Today, right here, he would prove beyond doubt that Raoul's way was wrong. Viscount Jaden nodded with satisfaction and declared that the negotiations would begin. He immediately ordered Baron Tate to handle the formalities. Baron Tate stepped forward and announced that, according to continental law, the nightly duel would follow a best-of-5 format, with the first side to claim 3 victories being declared the winner. A match, he explained, would be decided when one combatant was rendered unable to continue or formally declared defeat. He then asked if there were any objections. Raoul answered calmly that he had none. Baron Tate smiled and confirmed the arrangements. The duel would take place in 30 minutes on the plains outside the castle. Both sides were instructed to complete their preparations and assemble at the castle gates. With the terms settled, Raoul and his knights returned inside the castle, the massive doors closing behind them. Inside, several knights gathered around Raoul as he turned to face them. Weyran spoke first, volunteering the Golden Bear Knights to take the vanguard. Baron Carlo, commander of the Silver Bear Knights, added that his order was equally confident. A Chain Knight then spoke up hesitantly, apologizing before asking whether the Chain Knights might also be given a chance, if only to bolster the morale of the reserve forces who would one day become the backbone of the county. Raoul observed their enthusiasm in silence, thinking that everyone was brimming with confidence. As knights who valued honor above all else, it was only natural that they wished to step forward in such a moment. At that point, Jake stepped forward and asked Raoul to leave the matter to him, declaring that he would personally crush the traitors. Raoul refused immediately. Surprised, Jake asked why. Raoul reflected that, strictly speaking, the First Knights, Jake's order, answered directly to him. For an issue of this magnitude, it was better to resolve matters through the Count's direct authority, with minimal personal involvement from Raoul himself. To firmly consolidate control of the county, the strength and resolve of the Count's household had to be demonstrated. Since Raoul had already declared independence as the Lord of Calypso Castle, stepping in personally would only complicate matters. As he pondered who should be sent instead, a voice suddenly called out behind him. Baron Raoul. Raoul turned toward the speaker. The scene then shifted to Viscount Jaden's camp barracks. Baron Tate remarked that things had become messy, but in the end, they had worked out well. He expressed disbelief that their opponents had agreed to a nightly duel so easily, concluding that, impressive as they might have seemed, they were ultimately hot-headed youths. Viscount Jaden smiled and dismissed their opponents as nothing more than a night order hiding in some rural backwater. There was no way, he claimed, that they could defeat the Black Bear Knights, who had trained for 15 years. He turned as he spoke to a massive, muscular man, Luciano, commander of the Black Bear Knights. Luciano answered confidently that there was no reason to lose to lazy fools clinging stubbornly to outdated sword techniques. Their opponent's tiresome style was obvious at a glance, and since they knew nothing about the Black Bear Knights, the duel was already decided. At that moment, another man lowered his hood and spoke up, saying he would like a turn as well. Viscount Jaden welcomed the offer, though he found it curious that the man had suddenly volunteered. The speaker was Graham of the Delanian family from the Bread-Den Republic. He explained that he had grown tired of simply following along, and wanted to experience the great sword style praised as the finest in the kingdom of Reuben. Viscount Jaden inwardly scoffed at the insolence. After sparring with his men, Graham had suddenly developed an interest in the ancestral great sword art. Turning away, Viscount Jaden told him he would leave it in his hands. Graham replied casually, telling him to go and take care of things properly. Viscount Jaden smiled to himself. No matter how it unfolded, this would mark the end of the foolish main house. Whoever stepped forward, he intended to crush them all. Some time later, at the castle gate, a Golden Bear Knight acting as referee raised his voice and announced the start of the nightly duel, calling both sides to step forward. From Viscount Jaden's side, Luciano advanced, gripping his long sword. From Raoul's side, a man in his 40s stepped forward, holding a ripper. At the sight of him, Luciano burst into laughter and mocked the Count's household, asking if they truly had no talent left, to the point of sending a retired old man into battle. The man answered calmly that Luciano, for all his loud boasting, seemed no different from how he had been 16 years ago. Hearing this, Luciano ground his teeth in anger and hurled an insult at the old man. From the sidelines, Raoul watched the exchange in silence. The referee ordered both fighters to prepare. They each took their stances, and with a sharp command, the referee declared the first match to begin. Luciano immediately swung his massive sword, sending a slash of reddish aura roaring toward his opponent. The old man drew his sword in an instant, dodged the attack with swift movement, and charged straight at Luciano, taunting him by asking whether he was going easy on a dying old man. Flustered, Luciano lashed out repeatedly, sending wave after wave of slashes, all of which the old man evaded with ease. The old man rebuked him, remarking that his habit of swinging wildly when provoked had not changed at all. Luciano roared back, telling him to shut up and vowing to crush the Count's boring swordsmanship with his own hands as he began to prepare a powerful thrust. The old man's expression hardened. He channeled a golden aura that wrapped around his blade. Luciano lunged forward with his thrust, a beam of reddish aura surging ahead of his sword. The old man, however, remained calm and held his stance. When the aura faded, he was still standing, completely unharmed. He observed that Luciano had clearly studied a great deal, noting that he was imitating the spear techniques of the Brennan Republic. Luciano smiled and praised the old man's sharp insight, but insisted it would do him no good. The old man smiled in return and said it had been a long time since he had felt this way. As he spoke, even more golden aura poured from him, enveloping both his body and his sword. He added that the sensation of his blood boiling was something he had not experienced in ages. From the sidelines, Raoul watched the unfolding battle with a faint, knowing smile. Seeing the turbulent mana gathering around the old man, Luciano ground his teeth in growing unease. He could feel it clearly. The flow of the old man's mana had suddenly changed. How can a retired old man wield such power? He wondered in disbelief. Sir Zion surged forward to attack. Luciano swung his sword in response, and the mana-coated blades collided, their energies crashing violently against one another. As their swords met, Zion smiled inwardly. His body felt impossibly light, as though he had returned to his prime. To him, this could only be the blessing of the gods upon Raoul. His thoughts drifted back to earlier, when he had stepped forward and addressed Raoul directly, asking if he might take part in the nightly duel. Raoul had immediately recognized him as Sir Zion and calmly reasoned that their opponents would surely send out fighters well acquainted with the Count family's swordsmanship. Straightforward knights would inevitably fall to carefully prepared counter-techniques. Zion had replied that he had no intention of belittling the Count family's 1,000-year sword tradition, but in a situation like this, the experience of an old man might be necessary. Raoul had reflected on Zion's past, former vice-captain of the Golden Bear Knights, a top-tier expert who had fought in countless inter-kingdom duels and tournaments. In unpredictable situations, few could match his skill. With that in mind, Raoul had accepted without hesitation. Even so, Weiran had been quietly troubled by the decision. It was not that he doubted Xian's ability, but the knight had been retired for years, his mana greatly diminished. He wondered if Xian would truly be all right. Some time later, Xian had stood alone, unsheathing his sword with a wince as pain shot through his arm. At that moment, Raoul had approached him and asked for a moment of his time. Before Xian could question it, Raoul clasped his hand, golden aura radiating outward. Xian had been stunned as warm, radiant mana enveloped his body. In that instant, he realized the chronic pain that had plagued his arm for years had vanished completely. Not only his body, but his mind felt clear and refreshed. The impossible had become reality, convincing him that the youngest lord had truly received the god's blessing and awakened. Back in the present duel, Xian pressed forward, driving Luciano back with a powerful strike. From the sidelines, Raoul observed quietly. It seemed Xian truly believed the power he wielded was divine. In truth, it was simply Raoul's radiant aura, enhanced slightly by his abilities. Since Xian was not a guild member, the effect was weaker, but even that was more than enough. Xian unleashed several mana slashes in quick succession. Luciano failed to block them all and was forced to his knees, cursing angrily. Xian asked calmly whether that was all he had, remarking that Luciano's efforts over the years seemed to have amounted to nothing. Luciano snapped back, demanding to know what nonsense the old man was spouting. Xian told him to place a hand over his heart and think. 16 years had passed since Luciano left the Count's house. Could he truly say he had lived as fiercely as he had back then? Luciano clenched his teeth, fury boiling over. In his mind, he rejected the notion outright. He believed he had lived a far more meaningful life than remaining in the countryside, endlessly killing monsters. Memories of his time in the Count's house filled him with bitterness, endless training, sleepless dispatches to forbidden zones, relentless battles against monsters, and no proper recognition even after risking his life. To him, his choice had been right. It had to be. Suddenly, the tattoo on Luciano's neck began to glow. His mana surged violently, shaking the air as he shouted that he had not been wrong. Jake, Weiran, and the other knights stiffened in alarm at the sight. Xian stared in shock, realizing that Raoul's earlier warning had been true. He remembered Raoul's words clearly. Even with a blessing, Xian must not let his guard down. The enemy would surely be hiding a trump card, waiting until they were cornered to reveal it as a last resort. Only by staying vigilant would an opening appear. Returning to the present, Xian shifted into a defensive stance. So their final measure was the Emperor's tattoo, he thought grimly. I never imagined they would actually touch such a taboo. Luciano, now wrapped in overwhelming mana that coated both his body and his sword, declared that he would finish this in one blow. Weiran turned to Raoul anxiously, warning that at this rate, Sir Xian was in danger. Luciano swung his sword with terrifying force. Xian barely dodged, leaping backward to create distance. As he steadied himself, he realized the power Luciano now wielded was on an entirely different level. By burning life force and mana, the enemy had gained a massive advantage in a short battle. Xian forced himself to remain calm. The opportunity would come, Raoul had said so. Taking a deep breath, he raised his sword and settled into his stance once more. He resolved not to betray the trust Raoul had placed in him. He would seize victory here and return. Seeing that unwavering resolve, a small, satisfied smile appeared on Raoul's face. The battlefield shook as the mana blades of Luciano and Xian collided, sending explosions and clouds of dust spiraling into the air. Each strike threw debris across the field, forcing the knights watching the duel to brace themselves, expecting stones to rain down. Yet, to their confusion, the debris halted midair, stopped by Raoul's intervention. All right, I've got a rough grasp of it now, Raoul thought, directing his psychic power toward Xian to support him in the fight. Well then, let's test the results obtained from Janak's dungeon. Xian prepared for the next strike, but this time he could not dodge Luciano's attack on his own. To his surprise, Raoul's power aided him, almost as if an invisible wind was pushing him forward. What's this feeling? He thought. Dodging has never been this easy. It's like the goddess of victory herself is standing behind me, protecting me. Raoul, observing from the sidelines, reflected on his technique, the telekinesis enhancement technique. Until now, he had only used it to augment his own physical strength. Since the power relied on spiritual energy, projecting it onto opponents with souls had been impossible. but no longer. With his support, Xian blocked Luciano's next attack head-on. In a swift counter, Xian severed Luciano's sword arm, causing the man to scream in agony as both his arm and weapon dropped to the ground. Kneeling, Luciano shouted, "I'm not wrong," before collapsing unconscious. Viscount Jaden's eyes widened in shock. Around him, Raoul's knights cheered, praising Xian's victory. Xian, ever disciplined, immediately approached Raoul and saluted. "Xian, as per the Viscount's orders, I've returned victorious from the first duel," he reported. Raoul nodded approvingly. "It was a splendid duel, Sir Xian. On behalf of the Count's family, I commend you for your efforts." Turning to observe Viscount Jaden, Raoul pondered, now, what will he do next? A grim smile crossed Viscount Jaden's face as he gritted his teeth in anger. Moments later, the referee announced the next duel. Both knights were summoned to step forward. From Raoul's side, Baron Carlo advanced. "I am Carlo de Ashton, commander of the Silver Bear Knights," he declared. From Viscount Jaden's side, Graham stepped forward. "You may call me Ray for now," he said casually. Baron Carlo bristled at the insolence. "How rude! In a knightly duel, it is proper to openly reveal one's identity. How dare such a fellow challenge the Ashton Count's family?" The referee quickly intervened. "Prepare yourselves, the duel will begin shortly." Raoul watched, thinking wryly, here we go again. He was insisting on a fair match earlier. His gaze landed on Graham. "By the way, it's been a while since I've seen that one. I wonder when he would appear." Raoul examined his status window. Graham, 46 years old, level 89, a seasoned sword expert affiliated with the Kingdom of Reuben, Baron Hahn's House of the Brennan Republic, and House Delanian. Raoul recalled that Graham had been present during an incident at the Capital Mansion in the past, where he had proven himself a formidable opponent. "I wonder how he is now." The duel began. Graham leapt into the air, wielding a sword in each hand, and swung downward at Baron Carlo, who blocked the strike with his long sword. Sparks flew as their blades clashed. Raoul thought to himself, he's certainly a force to be reckoned with, but Carlo is no pushover either. Baron Carlo dropped into a defensive stance, then charged. Graham barely blocked the incoming attack, grinning as he activated a tattoo. "Good. As expected of the kingdom's strongest swordsmanship, but that's the end of it now." Mana surged around him, and in a blur of speed Graham moved around Carlo, leaving multiple afterimages in his wake. Graham's mind raced. "Unlike the foolishly self-destructive Luciano, I can properly handle this power. When dual swords move this fast, the opponent is bound to reveal an opening. One moment of distraction, and their life is over." Carlo's grip tightened, his sword trembling slightly as Graham prepared his next strike. Graham adjusted his position with incredible speed, closing in on Carlo from behind. "He's shown an opening, regret it in hell, you fool," Graham thought. Swinging his long sword with deadly precision, he struck. Blood spattered as Carlo's blade met Graham's attack, and Graham began to fall to the ground from the impact. Raoul's Golden Bear Knights were stunned by the display. Carlo, gritting his teeth, shouted, "What's with those superficial movements? You're all show and no substance, you idiot!" We're incredibly close to 17,000 subscribers, and this journey wouldn't be possible without you. If you enjoy our content, hit subscribe and help us reach this huge milestone together.